Là, comme ça.
Pedro.
We can't see you on a large screen, so it's okay.
Pedro, deu ok? Pronto. Armando, é com você. Estamos online.
Hello, everybody. Good morning in Brazil. Good evening in Taiwan, and good evening in France also. It's our very first meeting where we connect together all Ircad units. And this meeting is very important because we are going to have an opportunity to share and understand a little bit how COVID impacting our education programs and how these people are dealing with COVID infection and how is this going to change the world of surgery in the next years. We are going to have an opportunity to share experience from Taiwan, experience from Brazil, and from France. And I believe that in these three places in the world, with different steps nowadays with this pandemic, we can understand a little bit what should be the future or not, because everybody's so confused with a lot of information and how the surgeon has to be in front of this pandemic, how we have to behave, and a lot of things are going to change in the future. Well, I'm just want to thank everybody that accept to connect with us. It's not so early in the morning in Brazil, but and not so late night in Taiwan. I believe that is a great time for us to be connected. And also in France, they are in the lunch time. And I believe that probably we are going to have more and more connection like that, like this one that we are having now in a different kind of issues. Well, I have a pleasure to moderate this session with Luis Romagnolo from Ircad in Barretos, and Dr. Wayne Wang from Sochuan Hospitals in Taiwan, Dr. Gustavo Scarpini, oncological surgeon in São Paulo, Brazil, and everybody knows Professor Bernard Allemagne and Professor Silvana Pereta from Ircad, France. And this session is going to continue during this morning, and I'm going to just share my words now with Luis Romagnolo, and then we continue with Professor Wayne from Taiwan. Luis is with you.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon in France and good evening in Taiwan. For us in Barretos, it's a pleasure to it's an honor to have everybody with us together. We miss everybody and we miss our courses, on-site courses, and now we try to do an online course. The idea is to continue the philosophy of Ircad, to put everybody together. And now with this pandemic, this is the way to put everybody together, doing a video conference to try to explain a little bit about COVID, about how to change the possibilities in Ircad, in minimal invasive surgery, how to train people. And this is the idea. For us in Ircad, it's a pleasure. And we try to explain some ideas, some new possibilities to do these new technologies to change, train the people. This is the idea. The same like Armando said, for us, it's an honor and share this possibility and this talk with some people in the world. And nothing would be possible without the support of the AV team from France, Taiwan, and Barretos and Rio. Also, with the team for marketing for both Ircads, for all the Ircads, and all the possibilities to put everybody together. So it's a pleasure for us. So I would like to ask Professor Wayne to start, if possible, and I invite everybody to get our coffee or soft drink, or I don't know what time in the world. So sometimes a dinner or lunch or and a breakfast. People from Latin America, we have some people from Latin America, from Peru, from Argentina also here, hear us. So please join us and enjoy this session. And Wayne, I think that now it's with you. If you can start and discuss with us about all the possibilities in the new scenario in Taiwan, new ways to teach the people. Thank you again.
Hi. So you can, the sound is okay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that
Okay,
is
good. So first, it's a great honor for me to join this session, and it's really good to see everybody again. Miss everybody and all the online real lectures, the on-site workshops that we do together. So happy to give us talk on the scenario of COVID-19 in Taiwan. And I'm sorry that I'm in the car because I'm running between meetings. Uh, and the COVID-19 in Taiwan, the situation, how it is in Taiwan, and new ways to teach and learn. And so, just first, the situation of COVID-19 in Taiwan is probably quite remarkable. We have total population, 23.8 million, and our distance to China is 81 miles. So it's one of the closest country. And total case since the outbreak, which was very early, I think it was in mid-January, we had the first case, and now the total case is 441, and total deaths since the first case is 7. So, and this is a lot of news from international TV stations that reported on this, and that they noted that this is the current life in Taiwan. We have every business restaurant is open. We even have sport events, cheerleaders, although we restrict any audience. So we have mannequin for audience. And the reason for our success is to combat COVID-19 is I think we had a really tough experience of SARS in 2003, which is not experienced by a lot of countries. We had total of 668 cases, 181 deaths. So that was 27% mortality. So that was a very, very big scare. And, one or two hospitals were locked down, with the doctors were locked inside and they cannot get out. It was crazy all over the news. So that was 17 years ago. And we have been preparing, in total 150,000 people were quarantined. So we are prepared for something like this to happen again. So our government established a command center since 2003. We tell us that this will not happen again, and we were prepared for something like this to happen. And so we prepare. We have for our nation more than 1,200 negative pressure rooms in the hospital, which is I checked was one of the highest ratio in the world. And we have it's like a military supply. We have a stock of always face mask. We treated it very seriously. So when this COVID-19 really came, we were we prepared early on, and so that was the COVID-19 situation in Taiwan. So we are quite probably different from other countries where you have to deal with a lot of hospitals packed with patients of COVID-19. We are quite lucky. We still don't have that kind of situation, but we have really low case numbers, and we don't have quarantine, but a lot of restricted measures in the hospitals, and crowd gatherings were restricting training, surgical training in Taiwan as well. And we cannot have any foreigners coming to Taiwan. So it's a problem for a training center like us that try to do teaching. So how to maintain surgical progress when there are no elective cases or a low number and you have no place to train? So I checked and see how the athletes are doing. This is triathletes. They try to train while in quarantine. And if you are athlete, like surgeons who are like athletes, you still try to keep in shape, although sometimes it's not very effective and you need to find a better way to train. Okay, so
Yeah.
so there's a lot of different ways that we can do. Of course, YouTube and online resources like web search. Yeah, like a lot of resources that you can do. Web search is a really nice platform that Ircad family we are creating, and a lot of active members. Social media and education has been gaining more and more popularities. Like Sages, they have created a lot of programs in different specialties in foregut, HPB, flexible scopes, and this IHC is quite successful in teaching about hernia surgeries, and you can ask questions like what would you do type of questions on this, and a lot of experts will chip in their thoughts, and you can propose your cases to people, and a lot of people will give you opinions. However, this is not really sometimes effective because it's kind of random. It's and not sure how when the expert will answer, so it's not a really effective, efficient way. And live sessions like the ones we have been doing, this one was attended by more than 1,300 people, and also we use WeChat to reach Chinese, because the Chinese they use WeChat, they don't have Facebook or YouTube. And this we have broadcast our lectures or live surgeries with our faculties in Taiwan. And I'm sorry, this is in Chinese, but this is the dates that we did it, and the live views were 3,000 on the first column, and the people who viewed it after the session was over was more than 5,000 in some cases. So it's and there's a lot of chats and there to ask questions. So it's a good way through social media. So some papers published on social media, how it can change the paradigm of education and promote connectivism and shown to improve knowledge, attitude, and skill. And simulation is important when we have no real cases. And some systemic reviews show that, of course, simulation is suitable for acquiring regular skills. And this is another study showing that it can be very good for providing progression in surgical skills. So what we try to do in our center is we're lucky in Taiwan because although we don't have foreign people coming in, but we are still able to hold local Taiwanese workshops. So I'm just going to show some of the setups that we have. We have this is our training setup. We have a suturing station. It's not a box. It's like an open air kind of setup with a video recorder. So the quality of the view is very good. And simple setups using some of the models that's been developed, like for manipulation or grasping of objects. It's really useful for teaching young surgeons. I'll skip some of the videos. And another easy way and to help you combat the boredom is to use laparoscopic to do some paintings, and also origami, paper folding is very good when you don't have. So this is when you are very skilled, you can go crazy and I'll go faster. This is actually a really expert surgeon. He did a paper crane in less than 4 minutes. So if you are bored, you don't have real cases, you can try this paper crane. And also we did you can try endoscopy. It's also a really efficient way to learn because you can make the exercise difficult. Transfer pegs with the endoscope and puncture of the targets with the endoscope as well. we conduct this as a part of the surgical endoscopy course. And this is also interesting, ultrasound guided puncture. So we place some, I think, grapes, and you can see the needle advancing and to puncture the target. Okay. And this is, we had a course in January and again in May, both with 60 residents, and this is what you get when you have 60 paintings. And of course, simple laparoscopic suturing exercises. What we found was important is to divide the suturing exercise into individual tiny steps, like picking a needle and just repeatedly train each movement. So like just training with suturing and not tying. Okay, and making rapid throws. Okay. So I will skip this. This is a, if you're interested, this is a link to all the exercise that we do in the course. And this is another nice model for bleeding control. So we have a colon of the pig, and you kind of add kind of infuse it with colored water, basically, and then you can ask the trainee to control the bleeding, fake bleeding, and the model works quite well. They are quite nervous when doing this exercise, which is the effect we want to have. Okay, so, and this is another nice model. This is a mango. So, and this is a good season for mango in Taiwan. I'm sorry that we cannot serve you the real mango, but you can practice cutting the skin of the mango and peel it, and you want to peel it just the right thickness, not too thick. Okay, so you can see the texture is quite well. So you don't want to leave too much meat on the skin, on this peel, and not too thin as to perforate. So it's a good exercise. And after that, of course, you need to suture. So and it's quite difficult suture as well. So this is I'm performing the suturing closure of the flap. So this is a good exercise. And of course, with just a simple, if you can access to a small, this is a pig stomach, and you can perform closure gastrostomy, gastrojejunectomy, and this is a workshop we did in January and also again. So we were still quite lucky in Taiwan that our government allow us to have workshops. So this is a workshop in Taiwan with all the different exercises, ultrasound guided exercises, and people performing ultrasound on each other. So this is a good exercise because we asked them to perform liver, gallbladder, thyroid, ultrasound on each other, and actually we diagnosed thyroid cancer on one of the participants, and he underwent a successful surgery and was saved. So it's a good thing to side benefit for this exercise. As you can see, it's a quite good atmosphere. Everybody's doing something different, and they're rotating after some minutes to do. So it's a really fun 3 days, and this is a 3-day resident workshop. Worked quite well. So how we conduct workshop during pandemic, we for every participant that came, we need to ask them the travel history, occupation history, if they have contact with anybody, and if they have, we'll advise them to stay at home there. And when they come into our center, they need to keep at a good distance apart. So this is a mark we place on the floor when they come in, and we give them free alcohol bottle so they can sanitize their hands. and all the lecture speakers, they wear mask. Everybody wear mask, and you can see the seats. You cannot sit next to each other. We put a sticker to prevent you to you need to sit one seat apart. And when you eat your lunch, you cannot sit in front of each other. And we have this kind of plastic screen to shield everybody. And okay, so and with this, we still did our first hands-on Da Vinci training course. We did 2 weeks of cadaver Da Vinci workshops in our center. It was first time in Taiwan. So everybody wear mask the full time. So you can see this is the resident workshop with 60 students and about 30 teachers. In May, end of May. So my take-home message is that we need to continue training as surgeons, and we need to do that by web-based learning and online media, social media, and we can continue a structured simulation program with some new creative ways. And when the situation of COVID-19 improves, we can start to have small-scale workshops with good precautious measures, and that's according to whatever your government, local government's regulations, and we should still be able to do that. So the road is long and lonely in this time, and we are all feeling lonely without seeing each other, but together we can run further together, and I'm very excited to hear what others have to say to inspire new ways of teaching. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Well, brilliant presentation. It's very good to hear from you about how you deal with the crisis. What is surprising and amazing is the experience that your country had with SARS syndrome 17 years ago, and how they applied this to control the COVID. I believe that Taiwan is the country that has the most successful program against COVID, with the number of the cases and number of deaths is quite amazing. So, and of course, what you learn from that, you apply to your education system, and we can see that you are using some measures to avoid or to keeping the social distancing, the distance of among these people. Even when you have a little bit the crowd with 60 people in your residence course. But anyway, I believe that you also create a very nice exercise that I'm really excited. The painting one, I believe that probably is a very nice to develop skills in the surgeons, because the hand of a painter has to be very smooth and soft. And this is amazing exercise. Congratulations.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we have some questions from the audience. I don't know, Luis can share, but you are free to speak, Wayne, please.
Okay. I don't see where the questions are. Are they in the chat room or?
No. I don't. We don't have some questions, but there's some people here. But I have a question, Wayne. When did you start to restart the course? Did you have any problem to attendees accept to come? Did they ask for you some question? Are you safe, or how can? Or did they ask for you about the rules for safety procedure, or you only send for there the possibilities that the safety procedure that we have in Ircad? What did you do to put the people to involve the people in the course?
Yes, that's a great question. We of course canceled a lot of courses as well, and when people were really fearful in January and February, we have zero course, not even Taiwanese courses. And even when we just want to have a 30 people or 20 people non-surgical gathering, our infectious control people told us you don't do that. So, and when situation was more stable, and we started to ask our infectious doctors, our control committee, and they said, if you do this kind of measures, you're allowed to have a gathering. So we need to ask everybody, participant, when they come to our center for a workshop, because safety is still the first priority. If you don't have guaranteed safety for the teacher or the participant, then it's not good to have a physical course. So we ask everybody, if you have symptoms, fevers, and or travel history from places where there are cases, like if you return from China, return from the other countries, and if they have, then we don't allow them to come. And so when they say, okay, they have no history, they come to our center, we take temperature every day and spray them hands with alcohol, and they are required to wear a mask at all times. And then we keep social distancing when within our center.
Okay, so no, it's nice. It's nice. It's very nice to know, because we have to push here, and we have to try to use the same strategies to convince the people that we are safe, or to do some course. So this is the idea. So thank you. It's a pleasure.
Wayne,
Wayne asked.
I have a question
Yes.
for you. So in Asia, we are it's ordinary to use masks. So we used to travel and see a lot of people, even before COVID. They use masks sometimes on the streets, and is something that is in your day by day rule. But I want to ask a question related to the course, which was the most difficult measure that for being accepted for the people to make it safe. Which of the measures for you is the most difficult one to apply? Is the distance, because sometimes everybody's want to gather together to see someone playing something like instruments. For you, which is the most difficult thing to keep this measure, or the safety way to keep the social distance?
Yeah, it's difficult, and at this point, because we have like a zero case for more than 30 days now, and as Taiwanese people, we feel that a Taiwanese gathering seems quite safe, so people are not thinking too much. But I think in few months, we are planning to allow foreigners, like from Japan, from Hong Kong, to come to Taiwan, and they can test themselves, and if they're negative, they come to Taiwan. They can do like a shortened quarantine, like a 5-day quarantine, and then they can come to our courses faculties. And when we do that, of course we want to guarantee every measure that they're guaranteed safe for our staff, for our students, for all the faculties that come. And when you said which one is more, it's like if you feel like right now, we had a dinner party yesterday. We have 30 people, 40 people course right now. I'm in the middle, and everybody we're not wearing mask. But when the time comes to have a lot of people from all different countries, we want to make sure that the safety is the most number one importance.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Armando, you have to move and to change, and before we start, I have to go with Gustavo. I have to say thank you for the people and hello for people that were watching us. We have from friends from Argentina, from Brazil. So Professor Gustavo Marcucci, Marcos Belotto, Luis Tirocchi, Kreuder, Roberto Heleno. Some friends, Professor Reis Júnior, Luis Campana, Eric Uriel, Reis, Jorge Reina, Leonardo, amigo Leonardo Castro, Mariano Palermo, Robson Pasquale, Alberto Pereira, Gustavo Becker, a great friend of us, Sam Atala, he's with us. So, and more people from YouTube also. So it's a great audience that we have, and always a pleasure. This is the idea, to put everybody together and these new possibilities. So Wayne, thank you. I hope that you can stay with us. And now I'd like to introduce Gustavo Scapini. Gustavo is an oncologic surgeon. He has a very nice experience with how to treat, how to use minimally invasive surgery with these new possibilities with COVID. And this presentation is very, very, very nice. And it's very important to show us. This is the reason that we would like to bring him to talk with us and discuss these new possibilities. So I would like the people that are watching us to send questions, to send ideas, because we have the great team here to answer for you, and we answer live. Gustavo, thank you again, and I hope that everybody enjoy.
Well, first of all, I have to say thanks for Dr. Melani and Dr. Ramayolo. This is a kind invitation for me. And I intend to discuss some relevant topics on how to make the operating room a safer place in these COVID-19 days. Okay. My name is Gustavo Scapini, and today I'm talking as a general surgeon from São Paulo, Brazil. But however, I am the medical manager for Johnson & Johnson Medical Devices in Brazil. Then it's an honor to be with you today. Different from Taiwan, I present on this slide a photo from Brazil now. Officially, the data show that we have reached more than 800,000 cases, half of which are still active. And we had more than 41,000 deaths from COVID-19 since the pandemic began. After 3 months, it's possible to notice that the cases are spreading through the smaller cities and toward the interior of the country. Unfortunately, the curves of new cases and daily deaths is still growing. And in relation to Latin America, Brazil is the epicenter of the pandemic. In the last few weeks, it's possible to perceive the growing involvement of the countries in the West Coast and in Central America. Faced in this challenging scenario, medical societies have played an important role. In conjunction with Anvisa, the National Health Surveillance Agency, 9 of the major societies wrote the technical note that is guiding the resumption of elective surgeries. This note has many of the considerations presented by the international society and is well aligned with the recommendations of the Society of American Gastrointestinal and Endoscopic Surgeons, especially in the minimal invasive surgeries. Well, the main question is safe to have surgery right now? And to answer these difficult questions, I chose safety as a background. And in this perspective, it's necessary to analyze the patient side and the surgical team side. For the patients, there is no doubt, the hospitalization is seen as a situation that breaks the barrier of individual isolation. Therefore, the risk of the patients being infected really increases. To minimize the risk, we need to demonstrate to the patients that it's possible to offer a safest place, a safe access to the hospital, that care teams are being trained to avoid cross-contamination, and that all necessary materials and equipments are being used. Still, we need to promote the early discharge of these patients and keep in mind the need to decrease post-operative care to avoid coming and going to the office in the first weeks. I will return to this point later. The SARS-CoV-2 can be considered as a trigger for an acute inflammatory process and hinder the patient's recovery, with the potential to increase the morbidity, especially pulmonary morbidity, and the total mortality. That's okay, but let's move to the surgical team and how we can increase the safety in the operating room. What I'm going to say, it seems absurd, but it's necessary to remember that increased risk for the surgical team only exists if we are operating an uninfected patient. Fortunately, speaking on the elective surgery is the exception, it's not the rule, and we have to emphasize this. We already know that the virus can be through the body and that it can be spread by body fluids. Another important point, the viruses are mandatory intracellular organisms. It means that they are extremely sensitive outside of the human cells. And for it to be infectious, it has to be healthy and alive inside a droplet or aerosol. That said, there is no evidence of transmission that COVID-19 during open or laparoscopic approach, and there is no evidence of a live virus in surgical smoke, at least not until now. And this slide continues because there is also no evidence of the presence of similar coronavirus or flu virus in surgical smoke. It's possible to detect cellular debris and viral particles, viral proteins in the smoke, which by definition has no ability to infect the new cells. The only virus with transmission described by smoke is HPV during cauterization of the vaginal warts using laser energy. And in the gynecologist is a short distance from the perineum in this type of procedure. Even so, there are only a few case reports of this case. Okay, let's understand a little bit more about the risk of surgical smoke in relation to the transmission of respiratory viruses. This scheme brings a complex relationship between particle size, energy, smoke, and filters. Let's start with the red bar. Here we have the size of the SARS-CoV-2. It varies between 60 to 104 nanometers. And as I said before, for the virus to be alive and intact in the air, it must be contained in some particle and probably in a moist particle. Consider the formation of aerosols. Consider the formation of the aerosol. The particles will be between 5 and 10,000 nanometers. If the particles are in the form of droplets, water droplets, they will be over 20,000 nanometers. This is extremely important because the surgical smoke consists 95% of water and just 5% the solid particles in suspensions. For this reason, note that simple surgical mask can filter and protect the surgeon in most situations. Now, let's take a deep look at the behavior of the particles when we use the different forms of energy during the procedure. Observe the green lines. The first detail is that the virus can be contained within particles generated by any kind of device. It may appear in the monopolar, in the bipolar, in the ultrasonic energy, and on the laser therapy. All of these particle size could pass freely through the simple surgical mask. Now look to the head vertical line. It represents the filter capacity of the N95 mask. The N95 mask can filter particles larger than 300 nanometers. Precisely for this reason, it's the suitable mask for this pandemic. As additional information, virtually all particles generated by the ultrasound energy can be filtered by this type of PPI. Looking to the lines, ultrasound seems to be safety, right? However, in February, in one of the first studies related surgery and COVID-19, the researcher suggested that the ultrasonic energy could not kill the virus because it did not reach high temperatures. He recommended the use of monopolar electrical therapy in the surgeries. Do you think that it's logical? Let's talk a little bit about the temperature. SARS-CoV-2 is a sensitive organism to a temperature above 56 degrees Celsius. Realize that it's the same temperature that caused the death of human cells. As you already know that the virus is an intracellular organism, this seems quite natural. The important point is that the optimal temperature for tissue dissection in coagulation is between 60 to 90 degrees Celsius. In this variation, we can use the best energy with the least damage to the tissues. If the temperature rises over 100 degrees, the same boiling point of the water, the phenomenon of vaporization occurs, the same related to the formation of surgical smoke. If the temperature exceeds 200 degrees, we have carbonization of the tissue, a deep tissue damage, and by consequence, a greater inflammation and longer time to healing. And we all see the type of the scalpel with a black crust ever. It's precisely the lack of temperature control that can be the major problem of electrical energy during the procedure. Electric power has its maximum power in the point of the contact between the blade and the tissue. The energy is dispersed between the blade and the return plate. This lateral dissipation of energy during the journey that is hardly measured. Usually the temperature near the tip exceeds 100 degrees and the heat is dispersed throughout the tissue. Thus, it's common to produce steam and particles of different temperatures in the surgical smoke from the monopolar. Let's see what happens with the ultrasonic energy. We first need to understand that these devices are developed to keep the temperature in the range between 50 to 7 Celsius degree. As you can see in the graph on the left, in a few seconds, the device reaches 50 Celsius degree, and a prolonged activation is required for the jaw to reach 70, 80 Celsius degree, and there is minimal lateral dissipation. On the right side, in second point, we have to remember that the heat is produced by the rapid vibration generated by the ultrasound waves between the blades of the jaw. There is no electric current transmission. Thus, as you can see in the chart, in this right chart, in a few seconds, the tissues inside of the jaws reach the 7 Celsius degree, and there is minimal lateral dissipation. It's practically imperceptible over 5 millimeters from the blades. Then when we use the ultrasonic device without contact with liquid or blood, the formation of smoke is minimal. And this slide consolidates this information. It demonstrates that the conventional electrical therapy has the higher heat dissipation and the maximum gas formation. The advanced ultrasound electric device has the minimal thermal dissipation and practically do not form surgical smoke. And the bipolar is in the half of the way. The discussion about surgical smoke gains additional importance when we talk about laparoscopic surgery. At the beginning of the pandemic, many suggested that the surgery should be open. Sage was one of the first to reinforce the benefits of minimal invasive surgery, especially with the focus on early patient recovery and minor operative trauma. Certainly, the concern was with the pneumoperitoneum. The aerosols formed in the pneumoperitoneum may have a high concentration of viruses and particles in this, and this may pose an additional risk to the operating room staff. As we have seen, the proper use of masks tends to reduce this risk. However, if you are operating on a positive or suspicious patients for COVID-19, extra care must be taken to prevent air leakage from the cavity. However, you can use the trokers, especially disposable trokers, seems to be safer due to their stability in the portal and to ensure better sealing, especially in the worked portal. The removal of tissue from the cavity must be done by the appropriate endopouch, which are the more resistant and allow a tight coupling in the hole. The evacuation of the gas must be done only at the end of the surgery and by only one of the trokers. A specific evacuation device with suitable filter should be used, but unfortunately in Brazil and Latin America, these gas evacuators are not available. Another important point is to optimize the time of the surgery. The most important advice here is to do what we are trained to do. There is no time to improvise. Right now, we must be more liberal with the use of equipments that can speed up the time of the surgery and the safety. And the safety is on the focus. To minimize the risk of complication, it's essential to use equipment and staplers in additional use of hemostatics and sutures in a proper way. At the end of the procedure, we must remember to use materials that will facilitate the postoperative follow-up of the patients. The use of absorbable and coated sutures and the closure of the wound with occlusive dressing and glues can prevent comings and goes to the clinic, in addition to reducing the risk of surgical site infection. In the patient follow-up scenario, the telemedicine has an increasing role and its use should be encouraged. And to conclude, the risk of contamination of the patient is real during the hospitalization, and we must do everything possible to reduce this risk. The surgeon is at risk only if he operates on an infected patient. Even so, the proper use of PPEs and appropriate device will contribute to reduce the risk. At this point, we need to have the high quality information to protect the patient and to establish a safety flow to return the elective surgeries. And I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you again. And I will pass the screen to Dr. Romayolo and Dr. Melanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you very much for a nice presentation. It's very, when you present, it's very easy to understand how we have to behave. Your message is very clear related to that. And I believe that this clear message maybe is the most important thing that we need now as a surgeon, because in the world of the fake news, a lot of paper coming and speaking about a lot of things, and people are worried about this pandemic, and they don't know how to behave. And you deliver a very nice and clear message for surgeons how we should behave, and the importance of open and minimally invasive surgery, and how we have to perform to be safe for us and for our patient. I congratulate you in this presentation. Before we move for some questions, I just want to thank some guys that are watching us now. Dr. Carlos Vel from Barretos Cancer Hospital, and Dr. Durval von Rath with all the residents over there. And we have friends in Salvador de Bahia, Ramon Mendes, and several other friends in Argentina, Gustavo Marcucci. Thank you very much for watching us. Well, I have a question for you. You said that we have to speed up the surgery. Just give me an example. In your case, you are an oncological surgeon. What you change during the procedure to speed up? What do you think that besides of the cost, you have to use now to speed up some procedures? Can you just bring this some example for us, just to highlight this conversation a little bit?
Oh, my pleasure to do this presentation, and I think that we have to be very straight and simple information. We don't need to complicate the information. And I think that there are two ways to speed up the surgeries. First of all, you have to be more liberal in the use of the device. And as example, we can use the staples to do the pouches, to do the column anastomosis. We don't have to lose time to try to stitch and to do pouches to the acoplation of the circular staple as example. You don't have wasting time changing the position of the patients and try to calibrate the anal access during the principal time of the surgery. You have to keep the pneumoperitoneal as long as possible, not to insufflate again the pneumoperitoneal during the surgeries. And you have to be very cautious with the bleeding during the operative time. If you have some suspicions that tissue can bleeding, you have to be more liberal to do some stitch to reinforce an anastomosis, or maybe use hemostatics to provide the best coagulation in the retroperitoneum, in the dissection tissue. Then you have to be more alert to understand the signs of small kinds of complications, and to be alert to don't wasting time during the steps of the surgery. I think that it's a different mindset to be focused and how to don't wasting time. To have focus in safety and how to be faster, but to do in safety.
Well, you spoke that we have to use an energy device, and some of those we have some smoke and fog inside, and we have to clean the camera, and we have to evacuate this pneumoperitoneum, and also we don't have too much device in Latin America to in a safe way to evacuate that. How are you doing with that? Are you using some kind of a special tube, filter? I know that you work in a very high standard hospital with good protocols on that, but can you explain for us what we can do? And maybe this is a way to discuss, because in Latin America, a lot of people are creating some ways to try to protect themselves.
I can say that two things that we can't do. First, don't open the pneumoperitoneum in the free air. And second, don't use the vac, the wall vac, to aspirate the pneumoperitoneum, because we can put this air, this contaminated air, in the system line of the hospital. Then I think that the two most acceptable things is to connect the aspirator in the trocar and aspirate this air to the aspirator cup. And some people use a solute of hypochlorite, of sodium hypochlorite, inside of this aspirator cup. I think that's a good alternative. And the second one,
like a thorax drain, you put the hypochlorite inside, and you aspirate in a seal contain recipient.
Yes, perfect. Okay. And the second point is some people connect the respiratory filter that we use in the anesthetic cart, connect that device in the filter as a filter for the aspirator system too. And it's interesting because we can connect with simple tubes, and that kind of filter has a good capacity of filtration. It's similar of the N95 filter capacity of the masks, and it can be a good alternative.
Well, your hospital was the first one to establish a protocol to test everybody before go to elective surgery. So, and can you explain or tell us which is your results on that? You surprised some patients that were positive, or patients that were negative, and in the evolution of the postoperative period developed the COVID. Can you share something with us, or related to that?
Yeah. Well, Einstein has a rigid protocol to guarantee that the patients are free from COVID. I thought the most important is to get a good clinical history and the contact story of these patients. Then a patient without any kind of symptoms in the last 14 days, we practically exclude the risk of COVID. But some patients can be contaminated in the last 3 or 4 days before the surgery. Then for this kind of patients, we can test. And nowadays, Einstein has a very sensitive test for detect the COVID. The first test, we had a false sensibility of 20-25%. Then in the daily practice, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 patients, we can't detect the positivity. Now we raise the sensibility for over 90%. Then we can agree with the result of the test. That I think that is important, but I prefer the clinical history as the main point. And during the movement of the patients, he has always to wear the masks. I think that keep the distance, use the mask, and a good clinical history can address the many pain points that for the patients.
So, Gustavo, thank you very much for your time, your brilliant presentation, and sharing with us during this morning. And I really I want to thank you for your being so kind to be with us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Luis, do you have any question for him, or?
No, Armando, no questions here. Just to add some people that are watching us. Our friend Jorge Bravo from Chile, and Siongli and all his team. Professor Cristiano Klaus also, and some people como Heitor Guimarães, Marcelo Tievi, Ahmed Adam. So many people. So we have more than 200 people watching us. So it is very nice. So very nice to have everybody here. So now, Armando, now we'd like to introduce Professor Bernard and his fellow Alain So it's a pleasure. Bernard, I would like
Yes.
that you be here with us, but I hope
Yes,
that it will be
yes.
soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I connect?
Yes, for sure.
You can hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
And you can see me. So this indeed was a very nice talk. Thank you for sharing with us. Just to give you the idea of the amplitude of the problem is that in England, when the COVID problem starts, they say that you cannot do laparoscopic surgery. So just to give you an idea of the amplitude of the problem. So there was the group of the British Surgical Society saying it's too dangerous. And too dangerous, as we have seen in this beautiful lecture, is the problem of aerosolization. And with some experts in the field, we looked, in fact, at the issue of aerosol when we're doing laparoscopic surgery. And with a special machine that detects a gas leak, we have been able to objectively show the amplitude of the problems when we're doing laparoscopic surgery. So as was said in the lecture, it's not only the problem of smoke evacuation, and you discussed that very perfectly well, because we know that we can open the ports, the valve of the trocars, and empty the pneumoperitoneum, because there you will kill all your room partners. So you have to suck this pneumoperitoneum. But the thing that we should stress, and that we've seen, is that the trocars leaking around the trocar, alongside the trocar, is something that is extremely important. And we do not suspect that when we're doing our daily laparoscopic in normal condition. And when we analyze that objectively with the machine, the leak around the site of the trocar is very important. So my recommendation is that when you're doing laparoscopic surgery in a suspect patient, you should seal this trocar site. So you have to put a suture to close on the trocar. This is extremely important. And I'm pretty sure that people do not believe that, but once we will show you the picture, you will be really impressed by the amount of gas leaking alongside of the trocars. The second thing is that we've seen that also in the lecture, is that we are removing specimen from the abdominal cavity. And something that is extremely important is not to remove the specimen while performing your surgery. You have first to empty all the pneumoperitoneum, and then only then to remove the specimen. This is something that is also very, very important. And again, the problem of cleaning the camera, I think that there was a question of Armando. You have to keep in mind that each time you are crossing the valve in the trocar, you have some leaks. So that's why it's so important to be extremely cautious with the change of your instruments, trying to avoid as much as possible the leaks through the trocar, because that's the way the virus will go out and potentially contaminate the environment in the operative theaters. And so what we're doing here in France is to try to respect all these different methods. And for aspiration of the pneumo, we just connect a filter on the evacuation tube, on the suction tube, and you put a filter, and then it goes in the wall of the operating theater. But again, and it was very well stressed during the lecture, you can't suck without any protection. So you need a filter, and there are different types of filter that were described in this lecture. So just some comments from our side of the ocean.
Okay, very nice. So we are going to continue now, and with French participation, and it was very nice to hear from you. I believe that the British surgeons probably were you know them very well, that they said that laparoscopy is forbidden. Probably it's the same that did this in the last century. But anyway, someone is always trying to forbid laparoscopy. But well, I believe that we are in a different situation now. That we have to be careful about what we are doing. I remember well when the HIV happens, and everybody was a little bit stressed. And what we are gonna do, and what we learned from that is that nowadays everybody treats all patients if they were positive HIV, and probably this is what's gonna be in the future. We are gonna treat everybody
Aí.
like positive COVID or not, because it's a different kind of virus. But anyway, we are going to change some ways that we are performing the things. This is exactly why we are here to share these ideas, because in fact we know something, and we don't know a lot of things that maybe we have to change our behavior in the next future.
I
Bernard,
have
do you have any thoughts on that?
I have a question for you because we mentioned the success rate of the conventional PCR testings. In our experience here in Europe, we're considering about 75% of sensibility, and we know that 25 is potentially false negative. So our attitude usually is to test, of course, all the patients going to surgery. That's the first thing. If the test is negative, but the patient has some symptoms that may be related to an infection with the COVID, we do systematically CT scan, because we know, and Alain may comment on that, the CT scan is has more sensibility than the PCR. So what is the attitude in Brazil?
Well, I believe that Gustavo can speak related to the Einstein hostel. They did the first protocol to establish that, but each hostel define a different protocol depending where you are and the resources that you have. Unfortunately, we don't have tests for everybody in Brazil. Even for the population that is, we have a suspicious of COVID, some of them are not being tested. Well, I don't want to talk about politics, but what we see is now we have some drive-through to test people in some cities, and it doesn't work in another ones, and we don't know how much reliable are those tests. We don't know about it because some have very low sensitivity. And I believe that Gustavo had this experience at the beginning of the pandemics where Einstein Hostel used some kind of tests, and now they change for another one. But it looks like the CAT scan is very sensitive also. Oh, well, I operate on a patient 2 days ago. She was obstructed, and but she was inside of the hospital more than a month because there was suspicious about COVID. CAT scan say it's COVID, but she got 3 PCR, all negatives, and we treat her as a positive patient. Gustavo, do you want to share something, or Luis?
Yeah. In Brazil, we have more than 100 different tests approved to triage of COVID-19. Then the range of sensibility is very wide. The most of the protocols in Brazil, we reserve the CT for suspicious patients, because the most important is to detect the patients over more risk in the postoperative period. Because a patient with small symptoms, the virus, I forgot the word, the concentration of the virus is very low, then the transmissions tend to be low too. Then it's most important to detect the virus in the patients, to expect a complicated post-operatory. For the surgical team, I think that the PPIs can address better the effectiveness.
Bernard, here for us in our hospital, it's more important the CAT scan. Sometimes because the test we know that's not so value. So the PCR, or so we can have to see the symptoms, and the most of the patient we do CAT scan, and when the patient has the signs in the CAT scan, so we have to operate, and you have to operate. You have to do all the barriers to avoid the spread. But instead of this, we always use some PPE. We use the face shield sometimes, and the anesthesiologist do the procedure without anyone inside in the operating room, only he and his fellow or his resident. And this is one important. We use some filters in the trocars also, and we try to evacuate use the smoke evacuator, because you have some devices here, but we don't have many tests, so we prefer to use CAT scan when we have some doubts instead of the tests. And this is the problem. But you have here in Barretos, we receive people from around the Brazil. So sometimes people come from northeast for north, for south, and we don't know. They have cancer and they have to treat. And how can, okay, you have to wait because you can have COVID, I cannot operate. You have to prepare everybody and prepare the team. And this is the idea. But the problem here, we don't have tests for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I think that if you don't have testings, X-rays is the way to go. It's a low dose, non-injected CT scan. It takes 10 minutes, and you have a very high sensibility to the results of the X-ray. So that's a little bit what we're doing. And I would say that most of institutions do have a CT scan, so it's a very simple CT scan. So I think it provides a very, very nice information. And second point that I want to mention, because I know that some people in Brazil do have it, if I'm right, you have the new generation of insufflator, like the one that is very popular for robotic, which is the AirSeal. Mm-hmm. And this system are equipped with a filtration system, so smoke evacuation, and you have a filter inside of your tubing. Mm-hmm. That will protect you. So this is for those who have this, the chance of having this advanced technology is very nice, because you are protected against this smoke contamination.
Well, Bernard, unfortunately, very few hospitals have it, because here it's very, very expensive. But probably this is the technology to go in the future. Maybe we are going to have another people developing something like that that is going to create a safe environment.
We do.
For that. Another thing is that is related to the pressure of the room. And we are used to operating a positive pressure room. It means that when you open your door, the air goes outside of the room. And if you are operating a COVID patient, it should be exactly the opposite. And I believe that in the hospital, Gustavo, they developed some kind of equipment in partnership with a Brazilian company to create this kind of reverse flux to avoid that. Can you comment that, Gustavo?
Yes, the new operating rooms has negative pressure. Then the air keeps flowing on the roof to the outside of the operating room, and all the air goes via filter and ultraviolet incidence of light. Then it's an amazing process, but it's quite hard in Brazil. Most hospitals don't have this kind of technology. It's very safety for the surgeon and for all the team, because not just for the viruses, we can be protected of all the 20,000 different gases produced during the smoke. Then it's an amazing process. And it's very similar, the system used on the isolation rooms for patients who have respiratory distress. And it's amazing to work in a place like that.
Well, One important thing is that this week I heard something related to the research done in a Brazilian university in Minas Gerais, Belo Horizonte, where they developed a system like a tube with ultraviolet light inside and computer fans to trying to transform a conventional room in a negative room where this air goes inside of this tube and is sterilized by the lights. But of course, they have some concern about that because this type of light can develop cancer in the long term, skin cancer, because the radiation is very high. But anyway, I believe that maybe in the future, all of the rooms are going to have something like that to try to sterilize the air. Maybe. We don't know. Well, Bernard, do you want to present or
Yeah.
we?
Não sei, perguntei para ele.
The idea of inviting Alain, Alain has been looking at all the details about COVID from scratch. And of course, the problem of Ircads in the world, Taiwan, Brazil, is the interruption of our core business, which is to have people coming to the centers and being on site to run the courses. So here in Ircad, France, we have canceled courses till October this year because we know that the problem will stay. Maybe not the problem of COVID, but the problem of communication, displacement of people, authorization to fly, etc. So it will be very complex. So based on that, Alain looked a little bit at the alternatives that we have today. We are seeing one of the alternatives is this virtual discussion. But Alain presents some lectures on that, and I think it's quite interesting to look at the potential for, I would say, what we're calling today hybrid education. And if you agree, Alain will present his lecture to open a little bit the minds.
Okay. Well, this is exactly what we are persuading. I believe that in the future we are going to be hybrid. Cars are hybrid now, and we are going to be hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid is sexy.
Hybrid, no, total flex. Like you can now go home.
Oh, Silvana.
Here's the boss.
Yeah, she arrives.
She's there.
We miss you, Silvana. I
Yes,
know that
I was dealing with another Brazilian. Sorry, I was with Manuel.
I know.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go through the lecture of Alain.
Okay, thank you. I will start to share my screen. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Professor Daleman, Professor Melanie, for this space to talk a little bit about e-learning. And during the last days and let's say months, we reached a lot of part of our research in this COVID-19 topic. To start, I would like to speak a little bit how it was in France. It was really crazy. The epicenter of the pandemic in France was precisely here where Ircad France is placed, Strasbourg, the region that is called Grand Est. Probably because we are very near to Italy, that we already know what happened in Italy with a lot of mortality and a lot of contagious. We were witnessing trains that were converted to hospital, like a medicalized train to transport patients, completely empty, or the opposite, supermarkets, and even the necessity that we needed to develop 3D printed systems to create protective equipment. Also, we under the mentorship of Silvana Peretta, we developed a kind of mask that in principle is intended to be used for snorkeling, and this all with the intention to avoid I mean, we had very few protective equipment, and maybe this can be an alternative. So I will start to talk a little bit and quickly about what we are seeing about the e-surgical learning. By definition, we all know that it's e-learning is the acquisition of knowledge which takes place through technology media, which can be web-based or mobile-based. We saw already some cases of that. And one of the advantages is that materials are placed any time and anywhere through an internet connection. And here in this mini screen, we are seeing a meeting of the British Science Association that was held almost 200 years ago, and which the objective was to gather several researchers from all the world in order to establish research collaborations and to hear what it was the tendencies of science. But well, this was 200 years ago, and we are currently doing most like the same. I would like to start with the idea that the online learning is not the next big thing, it's the new big thing. So probably all the ideas that I will talk about are not new, but this crisis of the COVID-19 teach us that it's time to migrate and to do it quickly. A recent survey of Nature journal, everyone knows Nature, they create a survey, online survey, which include two simple questions. One, if the respondents were attended a virtual meeting on the past days, 80% say yes, and 40% say yes, and 80% of them say that the virtual meeting should remain after the pandemic. So the tendency is there, it's important, and we must take in account that. The next question is that, is everybody ready for the migration? I think the answer is no. There is some publications who reports that up to 20% of the web-based applications users had some kind of difficulty to connect, either because the internet connection was broken, the limits, the data are limited, the connectivity, etc. So on the past days, we listen a lot this kind of quote like, okay, now I can see you, but I can hear you. We start to use Zoom or Cisco systems that sometimes are not very friendly to use. So the migration can be tough. Talking about specific the COVID-19 quarantines, there is some epidemiological forecasts that even they are not so precise sometimes because they are based only on mathematical prediction models. Well, one important forecast from the Harvard Health epidemiologic school, they say that we will have quarantines until 2022. So this situation is not temporary, could be more or less prolonged. So we need to adapt and we need to know how. Also, even we have the other side of the coin. There is some important researcher groups who say that this will be over soon and that even we will not have second waves, etc. Well, there is the two opinions, but in one or the other, even if it's ending this COVID-19 quarantines and isolation, etc., the learning, online learning should remain. There is some important study recently published that they compare the traditional learning against the blended or hybrid models, and they found significance when the hybrid models were used. So we had the two sides of the coins pointing towards the change. Second, how surgical education is changing. I think we need to address that the surgical education is among the most complex models for educations ever. We know that to form or to become a surgeon is something very tough. And I think we need to see the different steps of the formation of this. When we are in med school, learning may be more theoretical than practical. So maybe the e-learning and all the distant and remote application can be very useful. However, once we are in the residency program or fellowship programs, the learning is based more in hospital clinics, and we do more practice than theory. So in this part of the formation of a surgeon, it will be tough to have only remote solutions. And we all want to reach the point to be a junior faculty, then a senior, etc., where only continuing education and a search for recertification are the important. And probably then, again, we can pick up some e-learning solutions. So with this, I want to say that it's a mix. We cannot fully base the education programs online or fully on-site, more or less than it should be an hybrid model. Sorry, surgical training. Also, we said that nowadays mostly of residency programs are time-based programs, which in these times time is lacking. So what some teams are proposing is to change this to base the programs in more than competence than time. So this is important. And the next thing is, well, the conventional surgical training is a mix of surgical knowledge that usually is acquired in the workplace, clinical skills that it's mandatory to have it inside of the hospital in the pre or post-op care, and the technical skills that are acquired inside of the OR, and we can use virtual simulators. So the efforts maybe should be focused on technical skills rather than clinical skills for surgeons, for example. There is some advantage of e-learning, either for trainees or for providers, educational providers. For trainees, we know that it's a self-paced learning. We learn at our rate, how we want. We can choose our own learning environments. It's proved that when the students are placed in more comfortable environments, they learn more. And this is important. It's cost effective because it's cheap or sometimes free, like now. We can offer education by very low cost or free. Also removes boundaries, and we can have the benefit of a webinar if we are in Brazil, France, or other place, and we can cover different time zones. And very important is that fully we can use analytics. We can know how many participants we had, how many times they stay connected, etc. And for educational providers, the advantage are that we can reach a bigger audience. Maybe in the past we can have a full auditorium of 50 surgeons, and now through a webinar solution like this, we can have thousands. So this is important also. One important thing is a remarkable growing market in e-learning. And also we can solve the faculty scarcity. We know nowadays that the faculties needs to travel a lot. They need to be in two places at the same time, and this is very tough for centers like Ircad. Also, it's cost effective. We can save some money. However, if we have advantage, we have also disadvantage of challenge. We know, especially for surgical education, for training, the feedback is limited. requires self-motivation, require time management skills. It's difficult to engage of an online program if we don't know how to manage our time or our motivation. Lacks the face-to-face communication that we as a surgeon, we are used to have in the OR, for example. Require basic tech knowledge, especially with certain groups of age that we are not very familiar to use technology solutions, can be tough. And for providers, there is a huge and long way to find course accreditations for this online content, because maybe cannot be cannot reach good scientific and quality standards. Also, there is more theory rather than practice. Also, as a medical educational institution, the profit is less, and for surgery, maybe not applicable. So there is advantage and disadvantage, and we need to take care. So from our point of view, what is coming as the hybrid models are emerging, we need to balance on-site and online courses while we are covering the cost of everything. Something very important is that the focus of the new era of digital trainers. We are used to have in-place trainers, and now we need to find some kind of solution to have more than a trainer, a coach that can guide you through the learning pathway. Another thing is that the learning may be converted to data more and more. And this is very important to reach some certifications. I talk a little bit about the e-learning market, which is very important. We are seeing that the forecast for 2026 say that it will be an investment of 375 billion of US dollars just in e-learning market, in solutions like mobile e-learning, rapid e-learning, virtual classrooms. So if the money is there, the interest is there. So we need to go there also. I will talk quickly about the IHU Ircad France know-how. We all know very well the web-based surgical platform, which nowadays is the largest online web-based surgical platform, which more than 470,000 registered members, which is free to access and to get an account. His first version was in 2000, and now there is more than 4,000 videos published in a multilingual modality, and it's free to register. Also, we previously, yesterday, Professor Daleman and Professor Peretta, they create the first Ircad France Live, transmitting a bariatric endoscopic course fully online and live, which was a really success. Also in IHU, we have the e-platform, which was created since 2017, which is a platform that brings together all the players of medical innovation to deliver personalized training experience and extended network. This is a platform which is validated by IHU Ircad and also the University of Strasbourg, which now contains 3 courses, master, which is the surgical endoscopy, image-guided therapy, and the business engineering and surgical transfer, the best that you all already know very well. So we already have some e-learning solution, very important, and they are already working, but probably we need to implement and to improve all these solutions. From the side of the image-guided courses, we are planning to have an hybrid modality, which will cover both sides, online and on-site. And this is all. Thank you very much for the space, and I will stop to share the screen.
Thank you very much, Alan. I really believe that this is the way that to go. We have some experience here in Latin America. I believe that almost every day we have some webinar over here. promoted from societies. They changed their courses, the resident courses, to be online now. And we had Jorge Bravo probably is with us today. And we did a big meeting, more than 5,500 attendees in first Robotica Latin America meeting. Was a huge success. 3 days of lectures online, real time, not recorded, what is very important. And app behind that allowed people to chat each other. So it's a strong move in Latin America, and we were very surprised with the number of attendees. Unfortunately, the platform could not allowed to have more people inside, and a lot of them were refused. But I believe that this is really the way to go. We should be hybrid. But because of the time, unfortunately, or fortunately, in fact, we have to continue with the presentation of Silvana. And I want to hear from her her thoughts about this kind of new way to do e-learning and how to deal with this idea, in fact.
Yes, Armando. It's so nice to see all of you. Sorry I was late because, in fact, I was doing some other e-learning webinar for Ircad, and we did our first live webinar surgery yesterday, which went very well. And I think that this will be another methods of delivering surgical education that is going to be more and more used. I don't have a particular presentation with slides. I let the floor to Alain. I think it's nice to give the way to the younger generation, but I do have some comments. As Alain mentioned before, we've been investing since now 27 years with Ircad and WebSurge Virtual University on e-learning, and then more recently, 7 years ago, with the IHU Ircad Evolving Education Platform with the Everest project. And we were pretty successful, and I have to say that delivering a blended learning where you're associating e-learning together with a also on-site course, it's something that students like very much, no matter what level they are in their training. What is really important to me and what I've learned, the lesson that I've learned over the years, is that if you're purely virtual, it's never going to work. You have really to mix theory and practice and use different kinds and platform of e-learning. You can use your PC, your laptop, your iPad, your phone, anything that can enhance portable dynamic education. It's very important also to change and vary the format. You can have standard courses and lectures, but you also need to have an interaction. This can be done with a dynamic Q&A, can be done with flashcards, can be done with micro-learning, with progressive with apps, but interaction and change is important. Remember that the web is fantastic, but it's live, and it will die if you don't change your content. So reiterating, renewing, and changing every year or multiple times per year the content, it's capital. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. Regarding particularly skill training, I think we're doing very well now because we're developing remote skill training through a new way of simulating some endoscopic or surgical acts. Poor man, low-cost simulators that are plug in and play into different kinds of technical support, laptop or iPads are the future. And of course, they have to be combined to more sophisticated on-site learning, ex vivo and then in vivo, and then with mentoring in patients. But a whole combination of this universe of possibilities, some virtual, some practical, are really, to me, the future, and must be the future also because, as you know, especially in the United States, a lot of universities are firing their professors and their faculty because of the economic crisis, being mostly also private centers. In Europe and in France in particular, we don't have this problem, but I'm sure that a COVID crisis really stressed the need to provide alternative ways of delivering high quality education at every level of surgical or also other specialty training.
Well, Silvana, very nice to hear from you exactly on this ideas and situations. So this week we try some crazy things like a virtual reality meeting, where I believe that this is the most important point. No, when you are in the web, you cannot interact in the majority of the time. You want to have the experience, and if you know that the majority of learning from surgeons come from the kinesthetic way, it means that to have a experience, in fact, that are going to help you to learn instead of just reading or watching something. And I'm very excited with the idea to create some simulators that you are able to, in your home, deal with some skills. But this is one probably step. But one time we have to match each other to do something. And beside of live webinar, live surgeries, this is not enough. And as Bernard said, we go hybrid probably, but I believe that we have a lot to improve in terms of theoretical and to make an easy way to be educated. And we see this with children's and small kids nowadays. If you give a regular magazine to them, and they are used to have an iPad, they're gonna throw it out exactly because they want to use the finger to interact with the magazine, and magazine cannot interact. And this is exactly what's gonna happen in the future. And I believe that you are doing an amazing work. We know what Ircad France do in terms of research and everything behind of the scenes to create the new future. And you are still doing that in the last 20 years and 25 years in a row, doing a lot of things on that. And I believe that we are going to have a lot of good things for the future, and we are going to change this world in terms of education. So I appreciate, thank you very much, Silvana, for and Alan, your sharing your experience with us related to.
Thank you.
Luis is our brilliant mind, the new generation also. So do you want to speak something?
Okay, so one thing is I have to say that with the new possibility that we are bringing for the world, Silvana, we have new ideas for our best in December here. So I think that the challenge will be nice. So I'm inviting everybody to make some on-site registration in Best, because it will be available for December here in Brazil. I think that would be nice, new ideas. And one thing that's nice, because now in our audience we have people from companies watching us. So the people from companies will have a new challenge to change, new ideas to support everyone. And we have people that's not doctors watching us also. And so it's very important that this live will be reach different kind of specialty and different kind of people watching. And one special regards is from our friend Galvão that's watching us also. And because it's very nice, yesterday he did a live webinar, and it's a part of our group. So this is the idea, and I think that for the new generation, we have excellent possibilities to change our mind. We believe that to contact, to interact with people, it's nice, but the live cases and these possibilities with this internet, it could be nice with the new robots, new ideas. So this is the idea, and nothing this will be happen because we have translation also. So we have the team of translation, Livia, she's translate for us. this for Portuguese. So we have courses at the same time. It's not the same like when we have people here, but we have people that can watch us. The language is not a problem also. So this is the idea. This is the idea about new generation. That if I summarize everything, it's we have to improve, we have to change, we have to change our mind, and maybe the hybrid surgeon, the hybrid person could be nice, and this is the idea. We bring different people today. Alan said so many things about the new possibilities. E-learning also. Gustavo showed us different possibilities to how to see the smoke evacuation and everything. Wayne showed us how to improve the healthcare in Taiwan. They are the best country in the world. They changed the ideas about the COVID, and we have to teach with everyone. And this is the idea about the generation. For me, it's an honor to be with us because we gave for us all the possibilities. This is the idea.
Well, we have, after 2 hours of live, I would like to thank all team that supported this program. This is the first one of the very long program that we have. We intend to have more focus on and specialties, in fact. And I would like to thank Gustavo Scarpini. I would like to thank Bernard, Alan, and Silvana from France, and Wayne to share your time with us and share our time in a global way, because this is what Ircad means. I would like to thank all the support that we have from France, and congratulate you all, because you are brilliant minds, and probably you are going to change the future that we are doing today. And I'd like to invite you for the next webinar that we will have, and I hope see you soon, not in a virtual way, but in face to face, in a personal way. So thank you very much for your time in being with us, and sharing your morning here in Brazil, your evening in Taiwan, and in France. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Bernard. And thank you for the team, France, Taiwan, and Brazil. It was amazing. See you soon, guys.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.